The call came at 9:14 on a Monday, the kind of morning that wears its quiet like a cardigan. I had oatmeal cooling on the table, the good blue mug sweating a small ring of coffee onto the placemat I keep trying to remember to wash. My hands weren't busy yet, no laundry folded, no list started, and so there was nothing to do but answer. "Mother," Elise said, skipping hello like it cost money. "Your beach house and car are already sold." The spoon did not clatter. It simply leaned against the porcelain and waited, the way spoons do when something bigger than sugar enters a room. "Already," I repeated, because one word can slow time if you place it just right. "Yes," she said, as if confirming a delivery window. "I signed everything on Friday. It's done. This is better for you." The first thing I thought of was not the deed or the car title. It was the little green turtle painted on the kitchen baseboard at the beach house, the one my husband drew one summer when Maya was 5 and decided turtles guarded houses better than locks. The paint had chipped, the way even good love chips, but that turtle had watched us for 25 years. It had never left. "Elise," I said, and the name tasted like a penny. "Under what authority?" "You gave me durable power of attorney after you fell," she said, voice steady, almost bored like she was reading from the back of a cereal box. "We've talked about this. We need liquidity for your care, for safety, for everything. Don't fight me on this." "Everything is an expensive word," I said. She exhaled, the kind of sigh that lifts its chin. "This is what responsible families do." "I was responsible before you were born," I said, "but not unkindly, because it's still a sin in me to be unkind to my children." There was a short, shapeless quiet between us, heavy and damp as a wool coat. "I have a meeting," she said. "A tow truck will come for the car this afternoon. The realtor will be in touch. Don't make this hard." Then the line clicked, and my kitchen remembered how to be a kitchen. Hours later, the tow truck backed into my driveway with the beeping cadence of a heart monitor. A young man in a neon vest, careful and apologetic, stood on my porch with a clipboard and called me ma'am in a way that wasn't empty. He did not know that on that same porch I had once painted seashells with a child who believed you could keep summer forever if you lacquered it enough times. "I can't release the vehicle without the owner's consent," he said, "or without seeing the paperwork authorizing the transfer." "I am the owner," I said, and watched him look at his shoes. And I did not consent. He called someone. He waited on hold. A gull cried overhead, though we are not close enough to the water to earn such visitation, and the sound fissured the moment open just enough for me to step through it and into motion. I left him on the porch and went to the file cabinet in the den. Second drawer, third folder. I had written after the fall on the tab in tidy block letters the day I decided to be brave with my fear. Inside were copies of everything. The POA. I signed the week my wrist wore a bright purple bruise. The medical directive. The list of accounts written with a finer pen than I use on grocery days. I read every line of the power of attorney again. It's a strange thing to see your own name become furniture. Something to be moved, something to be signed for. Durable? Yes. Broad? Yes. But there, right there, a sentence that mattered. Agent shall act consistent with principal's reasonable expectations, if known, and in the principal's best interest. Best interest. I could stitch a life through those 2 words. At 10:07, my phone rang again. Not Elise. A woman introducing herself as Kara from Harbor Title. Friendly, practiced. "We're just confirming your availability at 3 p.m. for the remote closing, Miss Ortiz." "I will not be available," I said. "Oh," she said, and you could hear the computer cursor blink inside her voice. "Is there a better time?" "No, dear. There is a better agent." Silence again, more thoughtful this time. "Would you like me to put you on with the settlement attorney?" "I'd like you to put a hold on recording anything with my name on it," I said. "And if that's not a thing you can do, I'd like the name and number of the person who can. She took an audible breath. Let me get my supervisor. My hands didn't tremble, not then. I found a small pad of paper and wrote down the names I would need to call. The list was not dramatic. Attorney, bank, registry of deeds, motor vehicles, doctor. The small, ordinary offices where lives are protected or undone. When the tow truck driver returned from his phone call, he looked relieved. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. They told me come back later. I'll, leave you my card." "I hope you have a mother," I said, and the kindness in his eyes was answer enough. After he left, I poured the now cold coffee down the sink and turned on the kettle again. There is a particular mercy in doing small good things when the big good thing is not yet certain. Boil water. Butter toast. Put dignity on like a sweater and button it up all the way. By 10:38, I had my coat on and my shoes laced. I locked the front door because I still believed then that locks meant something. On my way out, I glanced at the wall where I keep 2 frames. One of me and Tomas standing in front of the beach house the week we bought it, my hair wild with wind, his smile a stubborn sun, and one of Maya at 7, kneeling in the sand, face determined as she sculpted a castle with a moat that really did hold water. I pressed my fingers to both frames lightly, like checking a pulse. Lena's office sits over a bakery where the croissants ignore everyone's diets and the coffee tastes like it believes in you. She has a way of making paper feel like armor. She is not my best friend. She is not even, strictly speaking, my friend. She is what happens when life gets serious and you decide to be too. "They've recorded yet?" she asked, scanning the POA, and then me. "Title says no," I said. 3 o'clock, she nodded, eyes already on the yard-high stack of statutes that live in her brain. "We can revoke the POA today," she said, "and we can put the world on notice. We can notify the title company that you contest the sale. Whether we can unwind what's already in motion depends on how far it's gone and who knew what when." "I'm not trying to make my daughter small," I said, because even now, this reflex, this urge to explain, sits up and begs. "I'm trying to make myself whole." "Good," she said, with a small, fierce smile. "Start there." She printed forms I did not have to understand to sign. She called the registry, the title office, the realtor whose glossy smile I recognized from the brochure that appeared in my mailbox last week, the one I had recycled without reading. She kept her voice even and her sentences short. She used phrases that closed doors. At 12:02, I signed a document that rescinded the power of attorney. At 12:05, I signed another that named a professional fiduciary as my agent for narrow, specific tasks only. Paying the lawn man who is more boy than man, and the gas bill that insists on arriving 2 days late because someone can't be bothered to fix a computer. It felt like putting a lock on a gate I hadn't noticed was open. "Lunch?" Lena asked, as she passed me a copy of everything and slid the originals into a folder stamped with my name in clean black font. Names look braver in black. "Bread," I said, "and something with butter." We ate upstairs, the smell of sugar and yeast finding its way through the vents in a way that made me think of Tomas, of the morning he stood in our kitchen at the beach house, brow furrowed like a map, as he attempted hollandaise for the first and last time. The sauce broke, and so did he, laughing until he leaned against the sink, breathless with joy. The kind of laughter that lives on even when the body does not. If you have not loved someone in a kitchen, I am not sure you have loved. "I don't want to punish her," I said softly, more to the steam than to Lena. "She is my girl." "She is a woman," Lena said, kindly but firmly. "And women are responsible for the ways they make other women small, even when those women are their mothers." I paid for lunch, because I still can. then walked 2 blocks to harbor title with my papers in a neat stack and my lipstick applied like armor. There is nothing in the law that requires lipstick, but sometimes it helps the person wearing it to remember what her mouth is for. The receptionist looked 20. She had nails the color of sherbet and a name plate that said LEIA. I liked her immediately for how sincerely she pronounced my name the first time. "Miss Ortiz? Good afternoon, Leah," I said. "I'm here to deliver notice in person that I have revoked the power of attorney previously used to attempt a transfer of my property and to object to the recording of any instrument executed under it. I'm also here to request copies of everything with my signature and anything my daughter signed on my behalf. And I'd like to know the name of the attorney settling this transaction." She blinked twice in that slow, deliberate way young people do when they're thinking faster than they're speaking. "Of course," she said, and reached for the phone. While she whispered into the receiver, I studied the wall of framed photographs behind her desk. Grinning couples holding miniature gold keys, agents in blazers with teeth too white, ribbon cuttings where the ribbon looked like it had never hurt anybody. In none of the photos did anyone look like me. I stood a little taller. I let my face be a photograph I would have hung. A woman in a navy dress appeared, hand extended. "I'm Nora," she said. "Come with me." We sat in a glass-walled conference room that smelled faintly of lemon and toner. She had the tidy calm of a person who has never shown up late to anything. I dislike messy calm. It doesn't leave room for storms. "I've received a call from your counsel," she began. "I understand you're contesting the authority under which your daughter has executed certain documents." "I didn't know what she executed because no one asked me," I said. "Now I know, and my answer is no." She nodded like news didn't surprise her often. "We have not recorded the deed," she said. "We have an executed purchase and sale agreement and lender documents for the buyer. We also have a notarized conveyance signed by your daughter as agent. We received confirmation this morning that the originals were delivered Friday. Lest do not age inside. Do you have proof that I was incompetent? Or that my expectations included selling my husband's boat of a house while I was still wearing his ring?" I asked. "No," she said quietly. "We do not." I slid the rescission and the notice across the table, a paper offering to the altar of process. "Then you do not have my consent," she exhaled. "We'll place a hold," she said. "We'll request a written statement from the buyer's attorney acknowledging the dispute. If they insist on proceeding, they'll do so at risk." "At risk," I repeated, and this time the words tasted like iron, in a good way. "And the car?" "We're not a vehicle title office." "No," I said, "but I am a woman learning to say what she needs to strangers." "This mall's," it had him noted. "Good," she said, surprising me with a small smile that wasn't rehearsed. "Keep doing that." Outside, the day had turned brittle and bright. Sun on paper can turn even bad news into something that looks like truth. I walked to the bank because that is what you do when the ground under your life shifts. You go to one of the few places left where the world still lines up and waits politely. The branch manager, a woman with a velvet headband and the kind of steady voice you trust to name storms, sat me down in her glass office and asked if I wanted tea. I did. Earl Grey. Small lemon. No sugar. "I'd like to remove any additional signers," I said. "Change all my security questions. Set alerts for any transfers. And I'd like to place a temporary hold on any transfers above 1,200 without my in-person authorization." "Of course," she said, fingers already singing on the keyboard. "We can also add a note to the account that no changes are to be made by anyone other than you. It won't stop a determined person, but it slows people who mistake your kindness for consent. Do that," I said. While she worked, I looked at the ficus tree by the window and felt, for the first time that day, the kind of tired that comes with deciding. It is a noble fatigue, like the ache after you carry something too heavy a little too far. I let it sit in my bones like good soup. Back home, the house did not say, "Where were you?" Houses don't ask questions unless people teach them how. The tow truck did not return. Instead, at 3:32, my doorbell rang the way people ring when they believe the door is theirs. Elise stood on the porch in a coat that looked expensive enough to apologize for itself. She did not look at the geranium by the steps or the spiderweb I had been meaning to remove. She looked at me as if I were paperwork she had to file before her next meeting. "Why are you doing this?" she said in the tone of a woman who expects this question to be understood and applauded. "We're trying to secure your future." "My future is secured," I said, "by me." She stepped inside without being asked, the way girls do who grew up in houses where the door never latched. The old rug took her weight like a memory it didn't want. "I told you not to make this hard," she said. "The buyers are perfect. They sent a letter. They love the house. They'll keep it. This is good." "You've read too many glossy brochures," I said. "Love in letters is cheap. Have they stood barefoot at low tide? Have they heard the porch moan in August like it's trying to sing? Have they found the turtle?" "What turtle?" she said, and that was answer enough. We stood in my hallway, the air full of all the words we had not said to each other for 30 years. She was still the child who rearranged chairs to place herself where light liked her best. I was still the mother who moved my own chair to the edge and told myself that edges were their own kind of view. "You gave me the authority," she said, chin up. "I gave you my trust," I said. "You called it authority because authority feels like less of a burden to you than love." "Don't dramatize this," she snapped. "You're being uncooperative. I'm being awake." Unquote. "You're being cruel." "No," I said, finally letting heat into my voice. "Cruel is telling a woman that the home where she taught her granddaughter how to swim is a line item. Cruel is treating the car that drove her husband to chemo as a problem to solve. Cruel is using a power meant for emergencies to erase a person before she's finished being herself." She swallowed. I watched her throat move. "She has my father's throat." I had forgotten. "I'm calling the realtor," she said, and reached for her phone. "You can call anyone you like," I said. "I've already called myself." She looked at me then, really looked like a woman trying to find a familiar shoreline in fog. "You can't keep it forever," she said, softer. And there it was, fear peeking out from under all that efficiency. "Nothing is forever," I said. "But what is mine will not leave this house without me walking it to the door." She left without slamming, which is its own kind of mercy. I did not follow her to the driveway. I did not watch her adjust the mirror as if she weren't the kind of person who looks away when she's closest to seeing herself. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote 2 letters. One to the Director of Adult Protective Services, because somebody has to make a small noise when big, wrong things happen. And one to my granddaughter, Maya, who answers love with love. The letter to APS was brisk, factual, a tidy chain of dates and documents. The letter to Maya was not. It began, "My girl, they told me it was practical to erase me. I decided to be inconvenient." She came the next afternoon at 4:11, hair damp from the rain that never quite commits to our town. She did not knock. She never has. She called out, "Abuela?" the way only she does, and my house folded that sound into its rafters like bread taking in air. "I heard," she said, breathless, not from running but from feeling. "Dad told me not to get involved." "You have already failed to listen," I said, smiling. "Good." We sat at the table with tea she takes hers, sweet and ridiculous, and I told her the truth, without the flourishes I used to add when I thought narrative was a kindness. She listened with her entire face, leaning forward when the part about the turtle came, because she remembered, and leaning back when the part about the lawyer came, because she is 23 and still believes the world will behave if she instructs it to. "I don't want your house," she said when I had finished. I want you in it. Then we are aligned, I said. She stayed until the rain gave up and the streetlights came on one by one, reluctant as toddlers at bedtime. When she left, she hugged me like she was trying to make the day smaller with her arms. It almost worked. The next week unfurled like a spool of stubborn thread. In the mornings, I cooked eggs and read the paper and fed the neighbor's cat, who has decided that my porch is a republic with generous immigration policy. In the afternoons, I made calls to the Department of Motor Vehicles, where a woman named Dee told me, in a voice like gravel and grace, exactly which form could keep a title from walking out the door without me. To the Registry of Deeds, where a clerk who sounded bored took down my notice of dispute and then, with a quiet little cough, said, "I'm sorry this is happening to you." To the doctor, who added a note to my file, clarifying that I am, as he put it, alarmingly competent. I laughed so hard at that phrase, I had to set down my tea, and I went to the beach house alone at first, then with Maya. The drive along the marsh is where the world apologizes without saying it. All that light bending back toward you across water. The house stood there as it always has. Cedar shingles the color of a good book, windows that squint in the right wind, steps that remember every foot. I turned the key, and the door did its usual small protest, then surrendered. Inside, everything was where I had left it. The bowl Tomas made in the pottery class, where he tried to surprise me and instead surprised himself. The small dent in the coffee table, where Maya once dropped a shell so large we called it a moon. The turtle, of course, patient as patience, looking slightly smug despite his chipped little smile. I sat on the floor and let the house talk me through every day we'd had here. There was the summer of the white chair, when we dragged that ridiculous thing onto the porch just to see if it would look more like itself outside. The year the faucet in the upstairs bathroom sprayed sideways in a way you could only call joyful. The small Christmas after he died, when I hung the lights so low even the chair legs looked festive. The night a storm sat on the roof like an old man, and I spoke to the shingles because there was no one else to convince. I wrote, there on the floor, a new will in rough pencil at first, then later with Lena and the notary and witnesses who liked their coffee milky. The house to a trust with instructions that sounded like me. If I sell because I want to. And if I keep because the keeping is part of me. The proceeds, if there are proceeds, to go to a place where women put their names back on their own doors. The car when I am finished with it to Maya, if she wants it, and if she doesn't, to someone who needs a way to drive to work at a bakery that makes croissants that make old women laugh. The daughter called, of course. She called in different ways, briskly, angrily, sweetly, the tones like shoes she tried on in the mirror. She left messages that began with, "We're worried," and ended with, "This is disappointing." She texted links to elder care facilities with photos of residents who all looked like they had agreed to be pleasant. I am not a meal plan, I told my answering machine. It did not argue. She came by once more. I met her on the porch. Behind her, a car idled, a sleek vehicle that looked like it considered rain gauche. "You have to stop," she said, voice close to breaking. "I did," I said. I stopped saying yes when I meant maybe. I stopped clearing a seat at every table where I was not welcome. I stopped pretending surprise when you acted like paperwork was love. "This is about money," she said, desperate now. "No," I said quietly. "This is about dignity. Money is simply the instrument some people prefer to play their disrespect on." She stared past me into the living room. We both could see the corner where the Christmas tree goes. I had not placed it deep enough one year, and the cat, our cat, before he became the neighbor's, had climbed it, and the tree had leaned, laughed, and settled against the window like a drunk. She had been 10. We had eaten cereal for dinner that night, sitting on the floor because the table was covered in needles. She had called it our camping inside. We did not say that memory out loud, and I do not know if she felt it. I wanted to do the right thing, she said at last, weary, and that was the truest sentence she'd spoken since she was a child. I believe you, I said, but you did not ask me what the right thing was. She left without lifting her chin. I didn't check my phone for 3 hours after she drove away. When I finally looked, there was a message from Maya. It was only 3 words. I'm with you. Lena called on a Thursday when the sunlight made the dust in my den look like a small galaxy. Settlement is off, she said without preamble. The buyer's attorney isn't interested in litigating title when the seller objects and the agent's authority is contested. The listing has been withdrawn. I sat very still. It is a mistake to rush victory. It needs to land. And the car? I asked. The title office flagged the transfer, she said. Without your signed release, it's suspended. If you choose to sell, you'll do it at a price you bless and to a person you can stand shaking hands with. I allowed myself one small, ungenerous thought. I wish the tow truck boy could see me now. Then let it go. I don't want to be the kind of woman who needs witnesses to her quiet. I slept well that night for the first time in a month. The kind of sleep that lays down roots. Life did not turn into a hymn after that. It turned into what it always is when we decide to keep ourselves. Errands and soup and a friend who knocks at dinner time with extra lemons because she knows you like the way they behave in a glass of water. Maya visited on Fridays, and we walked the beach at an hour where the light admits what it's done to the day. We ate sandwiches that dripped happiness onto our wrists. We repaired a screen door and called it a triumph. She sketched me once without asking, and when she showed me, I looked like a woman sitting softly in her own life. He still feels here, she said one evening, standing in Tomas's study, fingertips on the spine of a book he loved. Grief is a house too, I said. The trick is not to rent out the best room to anger. We were not saints. We watched a bad movie once and ate too much candy. We laughed at something that maybe wasn't kind. She taught me how to use the big speaker so Jazz could stay in the kitchen even when I crossed the hall. I taught her how to salt a tomato properly. And Elise, because it is not tidy to pretend people vanish when we decide to forgive them less, wrote me a letter that took its time getting here. She wrote in pen that smudged. She wrote without her consultant voice. I thought getting there first was the same as taking care, she wrote. I am sorry. I am learning the difference between managing and loving. If there is a door I can knock on, tell me which one and how many times. I did not answer that day. I placed the letter in the bowl with keys and stones and rubber bands that have forgotten elasticity. I lived. 2 days later, I wrote back. There is a door. It is not wide. If you come, come alone, and without your good coat. Bring a kind word for the turtle. She knocked on a Sunday. She wore sneakers that made her look younger in the way that only honesty can. She stood on the porch and looked at her shoes and said, "Hello, turtle." It made me laugh. It made something else loosen too. We did not untie and retie our whole history that afternoon. We had tea. She cried once and left the room to do it. We sat on the porch, the wind indecent with our hair. She asked me to tell her one memory she had forgotten. I told her about the cereal on the floor, the tree leaning like it was listening to us, the way our spoons grew quiet at the same time. She smiled at that, small and real. I'd like to show you the papers one day, I said. Not because I want praise, because I want you to see the map of how I kept myself. I want to learn that map, she said. Then bring a pen, I said, and comfortable shoes. I have begun a new habit. It is smaller than the habits I used to use to signal change. It does not involve joining a club or making a chart. On mornings when the light takes its time, I walk to the edge of the water. I carry a small wooden chair, the kind that knew a child once, and I set it where the sand is firm. I sit with my coffee and my name. I watch dogs behave like they invented joy. I say hello to the same twin men who collect sea glass and argue about baseball. Sometimes Maya comes. Sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes I think of Tomas for a long time. Sometimes I think of nothing and let the sky put me away and take me back out like something precious that doesn't need to be hidden anymore. I still drive my car, not just to the grocery store, to the ferry sometimes, to cross the short stretch of water that spits you out in a place where the bakery slices the bread too thick and serves it anyway. To the library, where the librarian who wears earrings like punctuation smiles at me and says, "You again," and means it as a benediction. To the shelter 3 towns over, where the women come with their whole lives in 2 bags and eyes that take longer to arrive. I bring them practical things and one irrational thing each time. Last week it was nail polish, the color of dare. A woman older than me chose the red and painted carefully in the mirror of a spoon. "Don't you want to sit?" Someone asked me the other day, concerned but a little bossy, because that is our way with elders we love. "I'm sitting in exactly the right place," I said, and meant it. Will I keep the beach house forever? No. Houses need people, and one day this house will need a family made of noise and naps and laundry that smells like a dog. When I let it go, I will walk it to the door. I will run my hand along the banister and whisper the name of every season we survived. I will lift the turtle with one careful finger and kiss the chipped paint on his stubborn little face. I will tell him he did a good job, but not yet. For now, the shelves hold exactly what I can carry. The calendar holds exactly what I want. The bank account is mine, every cent of it. The car starts with a sound that still makes me feel young enough to get lost and old enough to take the long way home. The daughter knows the difference between authority and love. The granddaughter knows where the spare key is hidden under the pot that says it's just a pot. The neighbor's cat has decided my windowsill is a sometime kingdom. On my kitchen table, there is a stack of papers organized into a neat and ordinary binder. Inside are the names of people who will help me if I need them, and the exact words I wrote so no one else writes them for me. On the last page, I wrote 4 sentences in my own hand, not for lawyers, but for whoever needs to understand. I was here. I kept myself. I loved in kitchens and on porches and on days the weather couldn't decide. When they tried to make me furniture, I learned how to be a house. I baked a cake last week, lemon, with a glaze that behaved if you spoke to it sweetly. I cut a slice for me, a slice for Maya, and one for the day I someday sell this house to the right people. I ate my slice slowly at the small table under the north window. When I was done, I carried my plate to the sink and washed it as if I were ritual washing my own stubborn heart. The phone is on the wall where it has always been. It rings less now. When it does, I answer more slowly. People who love me wait. People who do not stop calling. I am learning to like those odds. This morning, I stood on the porch and watched fog roll in, thick as a new rule. A man walking his dog lifted 2 fingers in a hello that made sense. Somewhere in this town, someone is waiting for a tow truck. Somewhere else, a woman is in a branch bank saying, "I'd like to change my security questions." And she will. And the way the sunlight hits her knuckles will make even the teller feel braver. When I went back inside, the house smelled like toast. I buttered it to the edges, the way Tomas did when he was being stubborn about joy. Saturday, I ate. The turtle did what he always does. He kept watching. If you are listening for a lesson, I have only a small one, and it's shaped like a key. They will tell you it's practical to erase yourself in the name of love. It is not. It is practical to make a list of what you will keep and then keep it. It is practical to wear lipstick to the title office if lipstick reminds you where your mouth island. It is practical to name your fear and then also name your bread. It is practical to be inconvenient. My daughter called. She said coldly, "Your beach house and car are already sold." Hours later, I put on my coat and my name and I walked out the door.